Hi, I'm Carla with glutenfreerecipebox.com. I was asked to show you today how to cook gluten-free. We'll be going over two recipes. One is a gluten-free oat bread made in a bread machine, and the other one is a soft, pliable tortilla. I'm sure you'll enjoy both. Follow me into the kitchen. I'm going to show you how to make gluten-free oat bread in a bread machine with a gluten-free setting. You can also make it different ways, and I'll explain that in a minute. First, we're going to start out with 1.5 cups of gluten-free oat flour. Not regular oat flour, but you have to make sure it's labeled gluten-free. And I want to show you how to measure your dry ingredients. You want to use individual measuring cups. This is a 1/2 cup. I already have a cup in here. You want to spoon it in so it's not compacted. When you scoop it, you're compacting it. So you're going to do that, and you just level it off with the end of the spoon if you have a straight spoon, if not a knife. And that's it. To that, we're going to add 1 1/8 cups of potato starch, and that's different than potato flour. Make sure it says starch. 1/2 cup of cornstarch. I use organic. And 1/4 cup of flaxseed meal. I'm using golden because you can't see it in the bread, but I often use brown, which is more nutritious. 1 tablespoon of xanthan gum. If you're allergic to corn, then use gar gum. And we have 2 1/4 teaspoons of instant yeast. That's instant, not active. When you use bread machines, you want to make sure you use instant because it rises faster. And you're going to whisk that until it's thoroughly combined. Now we have 1 1/8 cup of water, I use filtered, and 3 eggs, and we've let those sit out to reach room temperature. So add those to your pan along with 1/4 cup of neutral flavored oil. I use neutral flavored or light flavored olive oil. 1/4 cup of non-fat instant dry milk. If you want, you can substitute the water for non-fat milk and leave out the dry milk. 1 teaspoon of apple cider vinegar. 2 tablespoons of honey. And if you don't want the honey to stick to your measuring utensil, then just spray the inside with some gluten-free spray oil. And 1 teaspoon of salt. Then to that, without stirring, we'll add our dry ingredients. Don't be afraid to touch it. The best friend of a cook is clean hands. You just want to cover the water surface with the dry ingredients. And that's it for the ingredients. So now we're going to just snap the pan into place into the bread machine. On my particular model, you press menu until the window reads number 10, which is for the gluten-free setting, and you press start. And it's as simple as that. You want to scrape the sides of the pan because it has just a little bit of stuck on flour. But if you don't want it to have your bread be sort of floury on the outside after it's baked, you just want to scrape that a little bit. Of course, each different, excuse me, I've got the water on. Each different machine's going to act differently. So soon after the mixing stops, you have 2 choices. You can either, on my machine, I have one where you can just take this and you see the paddle? You're able to push that paddle down so it's flat. So now it's flat and I can just even that out. But it still leaves a hole in the middle of your bread, so I prefer to take the paddle totally out. If you don't mind getting all gooey with your dough, which is more like a dough batter, Then take the whole thing out and then just smooth the dough best you can. And make sure it gets in the corners, though it'll rise into it if you don't get it close to the corners. And just even it out, and that's it. If you want to smooth out that top further, sprinkle it with a little water. I have a glass of filtered water. And it won't stick to the bread as much. You can just take that water and just smooth it out better. You can scrape the sides, just keep on dipping it in the water, smooth out the top. You can even take some oatmeal, sprinkle it on top if you want, and I can show you how to do that as well. And the water comes in handy for dipping your fingers in when you're putting the oatmeal in there. Now, you can take some oatmeal and sprinkle it on top. I like sesame seeds even better, and they stick to the bread much easier than oatmeal does. Or you can do one or the other or both. And get a little bit more oatmeal. There you go. And you can sprinkle it on there, but just make sure your hands are wet. And just push it right in. So it just beeped, so now we're going to take the bread out of the pan and transfer it to a wire rack to cool. Doesn't that look great? Oh, yum. So you can turn it upside down. If it doesn't come out, then you just have to turn this a little bit, which you can do with some softer pot holders. I just usually shake it out. Then this hole, oh, smart. Then the hole is smaller. If you have removed the paddle. And you're going to leave that cool completely, like 2 hours. Otherwise, you're going to have a harder time slicing it thin. And that's it. So here we have the bread. And just as I said before, if you use the golden flaxseed, you cannot see it in the bread. You're welcome to make this an oat nut bread by adding a 1/4 cup of sunflower seeds, perhaps a couple teaspoons of sesame seeds. You'll have a nice bread, even a teaspoon or 2 of poppy seeds. It's wonderful. Enjoy. So you want to make sure that you put it in a freezer bag, the loaf, whatever you don't use right away. Get as much air out as possible, and then stick that in the freezer.